Welcome to 720 and 720. This is John Schulman. I'm giggling and laughing because of our guest is absolutely certifiably crazy. He is a big-time guy. He's in the Major League Baseball with the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame. We have Dave Bristol, who is a former manager of the Reds, former manager of the Braves. Welcome, Coach Bristol, to a podcast.
Thank you so much. Nice being with you, John.
Well, I just asked you. I just asked you before we kind of went live. Had you ever been on a podcast? And what did you say?
I can't even spell it.
Listen. Do you know? Let me ask you this: Are you on any social media whatsoever?
None.
Do you know what social media is?
No, and don't want to learn.
All right. Now listen. I ran in. See, just a little backstory. I'm a Cincinnati Reds fanatic, and I grew up being a Cincinnati Reds huge fan. The mid-'70s when the Big Red Machine was rocking and rolling, and so Dave Bristol was one of my heroes, and so I went to we were at a golf tournament, Pat Boone's golf tournament, wasn't it? Pat Boone's golf tournament at the Bethel Bible, and we had three players, and we needed a fourth. And this cart drove out and brought this old guy. You were old then, by the way. I just want to make sure you knew that. And I saw a red golf bag. On the bag, it had a Cincinnati Reds logo, and it had Bristol on it. And I think I looked at you and went, "Sir, are you Dave Bristol?" And from that moment on, it was love at first sight, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I mean,
it was fun. I loved that tournament. It was always a good one. And I made good friends with you and remain that way today.
Well, tell me, are you still playing golf?
Yes, weather permitting. It's been a bad winter for golf up here in North Carolina, western North Carolina.
All right, so Coach Bristol, number one, you're in your mid-80s. And you're still coaching. You're coaching over at Young Harris College, correct?
Well, after seeing them hit yesterday, I doubt if I'll be invited back.
Did y'all have a game?
Yeah, they beat Clark University a doubleheader.
And so you won. I mean, so you must have hit the ball okay.
Yeah, that's fine, but I didn't like the way some of the hitters reacted. A little old left-hander that you could catch with a pair of pliers, and they didn't hit him like they should have.
All right, let's go back. See if your memory can help you a little bit. Let's go back to your career, all right? You're a North Carolina guy. You grew up exactly where you're living right now, Andrews, correct?
Yes.
And then you ended up at Carolina. How did you get in North Carolina and Chapel Hill? That's one thing I wanted to know. That's the first question. How did you get in school there?
Go to Carolina?
Yeah.
Well, hey, like anyone else, I had already signed with the Reds when I was out of high school. I went to Baylor School in Chattanooga and graduated there and was signed by the Reds. And then I wanted to go to college somewhere. And instead of being smart and going to Western Carolina near home, I had to be a big hike and go to Carolina. And there wasn't a gymnasium door open or a football field open or a baseball field that I didn't see. That was the classrooms my first year in college.
So you forgot to go to class.
You got to go to class, but I love sports so much. I couldn't play at Carolina because I'd already signed professionally.
So you didn't. So you played with the Reds. So you were playing with Cincinnati. So you never played baseball at Carolina.
No, you can't. I signed professionally back then.
I didn't know if you had signed. So you did sign professionally to play with the Reds. All right, and then you go to Carolina. How long did you stay at Carolina for?
I stayed my freshman year and one quarter my sophomore year, and then transferred to Western Carolina.
So you were playing professional baseball in the summer, and then coming back and finishing up your schoolwork during the winter.
It took me 8 years to get a degree, but going just 2 quarters a year. But luckily at that time, Western Carolina was on the quarter system instead of semester. And I got my degree.
So how long did you play professional baseball for?
Well, from 1951, and my last year with the Reds was 1993.
So you were in baseball for 42 years.
Well, yeah, if your math is correct.
All right. So
I loved every minute of it, John. And I was fortunate to manage some of the best players that the Reds organization ever had.
Well, that's why I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about. So you became the Reds manager when you were, was that right? 33 years old.
Yes.
33, and you are actually managing and coaching guys probably older than you at that moment.
Oh yeah, Joey J and Joe Nuxall were older. That's 2 guys that come to mind right quick that were older than I was.
Joe Nuxall was one that started. He started pitching in the majors when he was probably 16, 17 years old.
Yeah, 15.
15 years old. My fault. So your memory is pretty good. All right, tell me. You're with the Cincinnati Reds. You're 33 years old. What I want to know in this podcast, which by the way, this is an informative something on air that people can listen to help young players, young coaches, and just business leaders, anybody that listens. Tell us some of the guys you coached. Did you coach Pete Rose?
I managed Pete Rose in the minor leagues and in the big leagues also.
What I want to know, because I'm a Reds fan, what I want to know is why. Why Pete Rose? What made him different? What made him special? Why did he become what he was? I'm not talking about off the field. I'm talking about on the field. Why is he different than
desire to be better than anybody else, and he was greedy for a base hit.
So the desire to be better than anybody else.
Yes, yeah, and he worked at it.
So that's what he did. That's who he was.
Yes, he's always that way. I remember in spring training before he signed in 1960, and I didn't have him until 1962, but I'd see him in spring training. And he was always asking, come hit me some ground balls, come throw batting practice. He was a workaholic, and it paid off for him. One time at Macon, we were playing Greenville, a Dodger Farm Club. He was 0 for 2 the first inning and wound up the game 5 for 7.
So he was just different. Where do you think he got that? That's what I'm trying to get figured out. Did he get that from home? He get that from his dad? He just got that in an innate.
Yes,
people are born.
From his family. His daddy played a semi-pro football till he was 43 years old. 43. And he pushed Pete a lot. He pushed him. Pete didn't have the best ability of all the players I managed, but he would outwork everybody.
Now,
he was a good guy on the club. Great guy. Still remain a good friend today.
All right.
It's just a shame that he got associated with the wrong people.
Yeah, he's just a competitive guy, and that gambling's a competitive thing too. He's just a competitive guy, and probably needed a way to be competitive when he wasn't playing baseball. He's a competitive human. I bet he competes in everything that he does.
But he and Rose, Helms, Perez, Bench, Lee May, all those guys, it was a heck of a team.
Tell me about those. Okay, so Rose, just an unbelievable work ethic, and that's why. So you're saying guys were much better, much more talented, more athletic, than Pete Rose coming up.
Yeah, Pete. A lot of guys could outrun Pete, but nobody ran harder or tried harder.
We got something in basketball. Davidson over near Charlotte. Davidson that had Steph Curry. They had, and I want basketball coaches to understand this. They had average athletes at best, and they had the best fast break of anybody in the league. And you're going, well, how can they have average athletes at best and the best fast break in the league? Because they ran harder every single time than everybody else did. Now, everybody else had better athletes, but they ran faster. And so I never understood that. So I talked to a couple Davidson guys. They said, well, we run harder than you do every single time. Now, you may win the race one time, but we're going to run it, 80 times in a game, and you're going to get tired of running it. And Pete Rose ran like that every single time, correct?
Exactly. That's a perfect example. Perfect example. He took nothing for granted.
Tell me, when did he start? Because, half our listeners don't even know who Pete Rose was. When did he start? Because he made something famous. If he ever walked or got hit by a pitch, he sprinted down to first. When did he start that? No one does that. No one's ever done that before. Why did he do it?
Because that's the way he was taught by his father how to play the game. Give it all you got every single minute. And that's a good example, like you were talking about the Davidson team. Pete's a perfect example of that. Run. Do all you can every single minute. I never saw Pete Rose make a base running mistake in my life. And that's saying something. Well, he always knew where the ball was. He always knew where the outfielders were playing, when he could take an extra base. He never made a mistake on the bases.
So he was that guy you could just count on all the time.
Yeah,
yeah. How about as a teammate? How about as a teammate? Tell me about him as a teammate.
Well, hey, you saw what the Philadelphia Phillies did when he went over there. He inspired a lot of those guys, and they won a championship in 1980 when he signed on to play with the Phillies.
What made him a great teammate?
Well, his desire. And he's always first one at the ballpark, and he worked at it. And he knew how to play the game of baseball. He knew how.
We always talked about in basketball, enthusiasm is contagious. And it just takes...
It certainly is. Anything else.
It just takes one guy. It takes one guy to change the whole culture of a program. And if that guy's enthusiastic and he's respected, then he can change the whole culture of a program, a whole culture of an organization. I'm assuming Rose did that wherever he went.
Yeah, well, hey, what's wrong with giving your best ever? If you don't want to play, don't show up. But when you show up, let's go, play. It's supposed to be fun.
Back in your day, and I'm about back in your day myself, all right? You're a little older than me. But today's athletes, tell me the difference as you see it. And I know probably today's athlete probably drives you a little crazy. Tell me the difference between today's athlete and guys that you managed in the 70s.
Well, that's a tough question. Well, I'm not around today's athletes.
You're around those guys at Young Harris.
Yeah.
So explain those athletes compared to the ones that you coached. And I would say that some of these guys at Young Harris College, which is in northwest Georgia, up in the mountains, are as talented as some of those guys you probably coached in the minors or majors back in the played with back in the 50s.
Example, Charlie Blackman, who was an outfielder with the Colorado Rockies.
Yep.
Played at Young Harris. When it was a junior college. And then he went on to Georgia Tech and played. And I told him, I've got to know Charlie Blackman well. He's a modern day Pete Rose. He plays hard every single time and loves the game and is a great teammate at Colorado. That's a perfect example. Those guys today, I showed them the other day. I said, there's 4 guys who are in the Young Harris Hall of Fame. How about you being one of the 5th or 6th one to go up there? And all it takes is a hard work and show up. They got a good coaching staff now, and they play hard. I wouldn't go over there if it wasn't. I love to go over there.
what would you tell young guys, forget about coaches right now, young players playing baseball, basketball, it doesn't matter, football, it doesn't matter, because I bet you played it all back when you were young. First of all, should you play 3 sports, or should you specialize in one sport when you're 12 years old?
No, go play everything. And your ability, you'll finally come out which one's best for you, I think. That's what I tell. That travel ball and special, and that's nothing except make somebody some money. They don't get coached in travel ball.
Well,
They're
that's
just
what
spending the parents' money, I think.
what I wanted
for baseball in the world.
What I wanted from you this morning is for you to be very real, and to let us know back in the day that things haven't changed that much. You can still play 3 sports. You can still – all right, so young guys, what would you advise young guys, 15, 16, 17 years old? What are the keys to – absolutely keys to getting to the big leagues, but what are the keys to being successful?
Well, first you've got to have a little ability, and the second biggest thing is, do you want to play and desire and to work hard 24/7 at it? Hey, how do you think I got to the big leagues from this little remote town in western North Carolina?
Well, tell us about it.
Fear of failure. I didn't want to come back home and tell those people that I couldn't play and them make fun of me. I worked hard all the time, and I started managing the minor leagues when I was 23 years old. I wanted to stay in baseball and everything, and my desire to work hard and help other people, it worked out. It's a heck of a career, and I'm proud of it.
Well, you should be proud of it, because I don't know about, being proud is being with the Reds in my eyes, not the Yankees, no one else, the Braves, no one else. I'm a Reds guy. So, if you'd have drove up in that golf cart with the Braves thing, I think I'd have sent you to another hole.
Well, I probably would. No, Ted Turner, I know I wouldn't have had the Braves thing. I'm proud to. I worked for the Reds 4 different times. I coached for Rose. I coached for Perez. And then I was sent by the Reds to the Rookie League Club in 2007 to evaluate.
Tell me about Rose as a manager. Tell me about, we talked to him about it as a player. Tell me about him as a manager.
Good. He listened to his coaches, and I was with him the year that he got suspended, and I thought he handled it great. He handled the press because they were hounding him like mad from spring training on, when that story broke in Sports Illustrated, until August 24th when they suspended him. He handled the press great, and it didn't bother him. He listened to the coaches, and I just can't say enough good things about it. And he handled it super.
Who are some other guys?
That's a stressful thing, too.
Well, dealing with the media and dealing with what he had to deal with, he's still, to me, he picked, and you tell me this, he picked the wrong vice. He picked the wrong problem to have, because if he had had a drug problem, then he'd be in the Hall of Fame. If he had had another type of problem, he'd still be in the Hall of Fame. He picked the wrong vice to have, because what he did on the baseball field was amazing.
No question.
I think the best player that ever played the game, and people argue with me about that, but I thought he played the game the right way, and the right way is his effort in a meaningless baseball game in the All-Star game. It wasn't the All-Star game at that moment wasn't to determine who got home field advantage in the World Series, correct? Back in the day?
Yeah.
It was a meaningless baseball game, and he goes around trucking around, and people thought he was nuts. He put Ray Fosse on his back and separated his shoulder, right?
Yeah.
All right, to do what? To win the game, correct?
Isn't that the object of the game?
Well, it used to be, Coach Bristol. It used to be the object of the game, and now I think we're a little screwed up. I think we played too many games. I don't know. You tell me. Travel baseball, and I mean, when you were growing up, tell me, was your dream to play in the bigs? What What were you like growing up? Were you basketball, football, or just a baseball guy?
No, everything, but I had to hitchhike 80 miles to Canton, North Carolina, to try to make the Haywood County American Legion team, and made it. And then I got to stay over there this summer. That was a big thing for me.
So
80 miles hitchhiking in western North Carolina. Never failed to get back home. I'd hitchhike on Saturday morning, go practice, stayed over with the family, hitchhiked back on Sunday afternoon. Never got left, and it never got rained on.
So you hitchhiked 80 miles both
to get
ways.
To play American Legion ball, yes, just to try to make the team, and I made it.
And that's what propelled you. How old were you at that moment?
15 and 16.
You were 15 years old out there hitchhiking.
Would that be called travel ball?
Listen, we've had some moments on this podcast that have been good. That would officially be called travel ball. Yes, if you hitchhike. Yes, Coach Bristol, that's travel ball. Did your family have a car at that moment?
No.
Y'all didn't have a car?
No, my family never had a car.
So y'all didn't have a car, so you hitchhiked 80 miles to make a team when you were 15 years old.
Yeah.
And you made the team, and then how'd the Reds see you? How'd that happen?
Well, the Cincinnati scout came through Chattanooga and read something about the player at Baylor is working out with the Chattanooga Lookouts, and he probably signed with the Washington organization. And the scout called my mother and said, "Don't let him sign till I come see him." So when he got here, he was sitting on the front porch when the Washington scout came to sign me, and that made him mad. And he whisked me off to Columbia, South Carolina, to work out because he'd never seen me play. That was the Reds Farm Club in Columbia, South. It rained 3 days, so we didn't. So he put me on a train to Cincinnati, and I worked out a week up there.
With the Reds, how old were you at that time?
17. I just graduated at Baylor.
And you did graduate, correct? Because I can go back. Listen, I live in Chattanooga. Coach Bristol, I live in Chattanooga. I can go over and check those records anytime.
Do what?
So you did. So you did graduate from Baylor.
Yeah, Baylor, not Macaulay.
Oh God, you're a funny guy.
That was a great experience. I played for one of the best football coaches that ever lived.
Who's that?
Poppy Haywood.
Yeah, the stadium's named after him right now.
Legend.
So you go from Baylor, go back home, and then now went from Columbia and it's raining. You went to Cincinnati on a train.
Yeah.
All right, you go to Cincinnati. Who are you working at? Are you working out with the big team, with the major league team?
Yeah.
You were 17.
Ted Kaczewski, Grady Hatton, Joe Adcock, Roy McMillan. You think that wasn't fun? Were
you freaking out at a moment, or were you just ready to roll?
Scared to death.
All right. All right. So you must have done pretty good because you got signed by the Reds.
Well, it worked out. It sure did.
That was before the internet, wasn't it?
I didn't have much ability. I don't know how I made it.
What do you mean?
If I were managing me today, I might have to release me because my ability wasn't that good.
Well, how'd you make it then?
I told you, fear of failure.
So that's what you lived by, fear of failure. You just didn't want to go back home.
Yeah, and the desire to stay in baseball.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. We've had some great podcasts, and we're just trying to teach coaches and business people and players. But fear of failure is an unbelievable motivator, and it motivated me, and it has motivated a lot of people. So that was your main thing, fear of failure, just to not make it, not to have to go back home.
That's right.
What would you have done back home?
Not fast or throw that well or had no power. Hey, all those things that you grade players on that I later had to do. But I told you earlier, I was fortunate to manage some of the best players that the Reds had. From Cuba, we had a working agreement with Cuba at that time. Tony Perez came out of there, and he's one of the finest people and finest players I ever managed.
What do you mean you had a working agreement with Cuba?
Well, that means that they had first signed on. Gabe Paul was good friends with Bobby Madura, who owned the Havana Sugar Kings, a AAA farm club, and they worked out a deal where we had first shot at Cuban players.
So the Reds did.
Yeah,
Was
and
anybody?
we had a lot of them. We got a lot of them.
Was anybody else going down to Cuba at that moment? Any of the other organizations?
The Washington Senators signed a lot of. They signed Pedro Ramos, Camilo Pascual. They got a good, yeah.
But you had first dibs on it.
Well, for a few years till Castro took over.
And that messed up things.
Yeah.
Well, Perez, as I grew up, Perez was our guy, was my guy. And Concepcion was my guy. And Foster out and left was my guy. I didn't get a chance to pick Pete Rose because my brother picked Pete Rose. My sister had Joe Morgan. We had the whole squad. You did. Now, when did you leave? When did you leave Cincinnati? The first time?
After the '69 season.
So you were going at, okay, so where'd you head at that moment? Milwaukee?
Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, so you're with the Brewers. As the manager with the Brewers?
Yes.
Tell me your favorite spots, your most success, your biggest issues, what you learned by being a manager, what you can relate to coaches now.
Well,
how did you screw up? What was good? How did you screw up? Tell us about it all.
How I grew up.
No, how'd you screw up? Where did you screw up along the way? Where did you what was the good things that you did?
If I won 2 more games in Cincinnati in '69, I think I'd have stayed.
It was just
you got to win.
You got to win.
Yeah, well, we were eliminated the last day of the season. Won 89 games, and hey, that's part of it. Managers are hired to get fired.
Did it affect you to get fired?
Well, I signed to manage Seattle, which was an expansion club, and then in spring training, Bud Selig was out there every weekend trying to buy the club. And the last week of the season, the Seattle Pilots were sold to Milwaukee. And they told the equipment truck, drive toward Salt Lake City. If the club is sold, turn right to Milwaukee. If it's not sold, continue north to Seattle.
Wow. All right, so the club was sold. You went to Milwaukee.
From Milwaukee 3 years, and then went coached third base for Gene Malk in Montreal 3 years, 2 years in Atlanta, and then 3 years with the Giants. Then 4.5 years at Philadelphia coaching third base. And then back to Reds in '89 with Pete, and '93 with Perez. Wonderful career. Wonderful career.
Well, anytime you have that type, I mean, it's a special career because you're on top of your profession, and you got on top of your profession. Tell me about Atlanta. How was your experience with the Braves?
Well, I thought it would be a heck of a job. Furman Bisher asked me at the press conference, said Eddie Robinson said he wants to hire a fiery manager. And he said, did you feel that bill? And I said, yeah, I've been fired 5 times. But Turner bought the team in the wintertime and fired Eddie Robinson. And I just didn't. Turner and I didn't hit it off. He didn't like me, and I didn't like him.
Well,
we had some pretty good players there.
No, so you're saying you and Ted Turner didn't like each other?
I didn't think so.
Well, it didn't stem back from, he went to McCallie, you went to Baylor. It didn't stem back from that, did it? Because,
Well,
Baylor
that
and
didn't
McCallie
happen
people,
any.
they don't like each other, man.
No, it just didn't work out. But hey, that's. I told you earlier, you're hired to be fired.
Well, tell me as a manager, the best things that you did to motivate people, and some bad things that you learned from, that this didn't work or that did work. Tell me a couple things as a manager, as a coach, that you did that you liked or that you didn't like.
Well,
and do it now because you're still coaching at Young Harris.
Well, I've always made myself available for practice. I mean, in the minor leagues, you worked out in the morning teaching because it's a lot of teaching. And I tried to get, I wanted my players to be the best. And if they're going to send me good players, I want to send them back to their mamas, daddies in the season, better people and better players.
Talk to me about better people. So so you all worked on.
I think you have to have some character to be a good player. Character comes into a lot of it too.
We talk about in basketball, we talk about having championship character. And if you don't have championship character, you'll wilt when the time comes.
Yeah, you got to have that. That's what I talked to those guys about. I talked to those guys at Young Harris. I said, we got a lot of players this year. Some of you aren't going to play. You've got a good attitude this fall. Let's see how it is when you're sitting on the bench. You still got to have that good attitude and be a team person. I'll give you a good example. How about that McConnell guy that plays for Duke? You don't ever see him, and all of a sudden at Syracuse, he comes in and helps win the game. And last night he filled in. That's what you got to have on a good team.
He doesn't look like Zion, though.
Put a role player in sometimes, and he shoots a bunch of threes that helps you win. But he sits over there and keeps his mouth shut, and he's ready when his time is. You punch him in.
Well, I'm a big believer of this, Coach. I'm a big believer that if you're over there as a player and you're sulking and pouting, and that when your time is called, you're not going to be ready. And you've got to have a great attitude, because you never know when your time's called. You never know when Wally Pipp's going to get sick. And you never know when something's going to happen in front of you that you're going to have to be forced into action. And if you're not ready.
That's true. Look at all the players at Duke who got to be fill in now when Williamson's hurt. They better be ready. And some of them are showing they are.
Same thing in the majors. Same thing in the major league. You still got to have that great attitude. You're not playing because you're also getting paid on that level pretty good.
Yeah. Now somebody's going to get hurt before the season's over. You better be ready.
Your first contract.
The guys are ready to go fill in. That's the guys that you want on your team.
I want to know your first
attitude again. Attitude.
Well, it's all about attitude. I think talent. The first thing you said is you have to have some ability, but I think there's a lot of guys with ability, Coach, that don't have championship character or don't have any character and can't make it. And you can't even see their ability because they can't get on the field because they're such a pain in the tail and they're so high maintenance off the field. You can't even tell if they have any ability at all.
Yeah.
So that happens all the time. I'm assuming in the big leagues, even though you're getting paid.
And another thing too about coaching, you got to be good to you people, because they're yours. That's what you've been given. You can't down them all the time. There's got to be love to it and caring. You got to care for your players. And I think today's players, you get more with sugar you do vinegar.
All right. So your love for your players, that's vital. Even on that level, even on the majors, even in the bigs?
Yes. Yeah. Hey, heck yeah.
Talk to me about your staff. Talk to me about staff chemistry. If you got to love your staff, if you're putting pressure on your staff, tell me about how you dealt with your staff when you were a manager.
Well, I always tried to hire good people who cared about the players and knew their role, especially the third base coach. Uh, the third base coach and the pitching coach are two valuable people or any coach is. Because, hey, he interacts with the players sometimes more than the manager does. Because of, especially today with all the media, the coaches really have to be on top of the game, I think.
So I mean, you guys were a very tight knit group. Yeah, I think a coaching staff has to have great chemistry. I don't think there can be any dissension or
Well, there
anything like
can't
that.
be second guessing. No, no, no.
So that was very important on that level also.
I think so. Yeah, certainly is. Certainly is.
If you could do it again, if you could do it again and you could coach and manage again, I know you're doing it right now in a different capacity. Is there anything you would change on how you conducted your business?
No, I probably wouldn't have as many meetings as I did, but it was all in a teaching situation, trying to get them to be better. Because the attention span in education 101, you were taught that the attention span is not too long for some people, and you can't keep harping all the time. Let them go play. Let them go play. And I still like what Bob Huggins says, that ass chewing every once in a while isn't all bad.
Coach, you know what's amazing? You just now you're 85, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
When do you turn 86?
In June,
And you drive down. You drive what, 30 minutes? Do
30 or 40 minutes, young hires.
do you have a car? Or are you hitchhiking down there?
No, I've got a car.
Because I would feel bad if I saw you on the side of the road. I would pick you up because you look pretty harmless, so I would pick you up. All right. So you're driving down 30, 45 minutes every day to help those guys at Young Harris. You're 85 years old. You have a gift. You're sitting there telling me what Huggins is doing and that Williamson's hurt and McConnell's coming off the bench from down in Atlanta, coming off the bench to help them beat Syracuse. You're as sharp as you always were, and you gave us great tidbits this morning to help young coaches, business guys. You just got to – it still revolves around loving you guys and caring for you guys and holding them accountable, correct?
You bet. You bet.
And the difference between being good and great, like a Pete Rose or somebody just solid, was his desire to be just the best.
And jeans. Yeah.
And jeans. And you ain't talking about Levi or Wrangler jeans. You're talking about jeans that he's got with him.
Yeah.
And then once again, the fear of failure. You didn't want to go back home.
No.
Tell me your
But I'm homesick now.
Tell me your first contract, and then I'm gonna let you go. Your first contract. How much did you sign for? You're playing in the majors. Tell me your first contract.
Well, listen, I had a football scholarship to Georgia Tech, which was worth something, right?
Yes, sir.
So they made sure that I had a 4-year scholarship in my thing, and I made $300 a month going to Welch, West Virginia.
So you made $300 a month.
We were riding home from Kingsport to Welch one night, and the brakes went out on the bus, and everybody broke to the door. And the big manager, the great big guy, Mike Blazo, he said, "No, boys, the manager's the leader. He goes first." And that's where I learned leadership.
I bet you got story after story after. You need to write a book.
No, I don't. No.
Well, look, we appreciate your time this morning, and I'm glad now you know what a podcast really is, so you're in great shape. And just be honest, we've never had a professional or former professional coach on with us. And but I mean, I just appreciate your insight with Pete Rose. He's always been a hero of mine, and and I've fought and I've fought for him all these years. I wish he would make it to the Hall of Fame before he moves on and passes on. But I just appreciate your insight with you and the players and your coaching style and you playing travel baseball back in the day. I didn't know there was travel baseball back when you were when you were 6.
I've enjoyed it and I appreciate it.
Hey, listen, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon. We just appreciate your time.
Thank you.